It was late evening, and the rain had been falling since morning. The small human town was quiet, most shops already closed. But outside a little run-down store, one glowing sign still flickered in the dark. The words read clearly in bright red letters, "Help Wanted." Beneath that sign stood a figure. She was tall, covered in a long cloak that hid her face. She did not move for hours. She just stood there silent, as if waiting for someone. People who walked by slowed down. They stared at her but kept their distance. Children whispered to each other, "Who is she?" Some laughed nervously. Others pulled their parents' hands to hurry away. The adults looked suspicious. Some thought she was a beggar. Some thought she was dangerous. Nobody had ever seen her before in this little town. The rain hit the street hard, but she did not flinch. Drops rolled down her hood, and her thin frame shook slightly still. She stayed under that flickering sign. Her eyes, faintly glowing from under the hood, followed every human who passed. That glow made people even more uneasy. Humans were used to lights in machines, but not in someone's eyes by nightfall. The rumor had already spread. In the nearby cafe, workers spoke in low voices. "There's someone strange outside the store," one said. "She's been standing there since morning." "Maybe she's homeless," another answered. "No, did you see her? Her skin isn't normal, it's too pale, almost silver." The last man leaned closer. "I think she's an alien." That word made people tense. Alien. It was not the first time humans had heard of them, but in small towns, aliens were still something from news broadcasts. Not from real life. People in the cafe shook their heads. Some laughed to hide their fear. Others said, "If she is an alien, why is she under a help wanted sign?" Nobody could answer. The figure outside kept standing. She never begged, never spoke, never moved away. Hours turned into more hours. The streets grew emptier. The shopkeeper closed the store and left without even looking at her. Streetlights buzzed weakly as the storm grew stronger. Yet she remained there, alone, from across the street. An old woman peeked through her curtain. Her voice trembled as she spoke to herself. "She's waiting for something. Or maybe someone." She closed the curtain quickly, afraid that the glowing eyes might see her every now and then. A car passed by. The drivers slowed to look but never stopped. One group of young men threw a bottle at her feet. It shattered, splashing dirty water. She did not react. She only tightened her cloak around her body and lowered her head. The laughter of the young men echoed as they drove away. The more people ignored her, the more she looked like a ghost of the street. But a ghost could not be hungry. Her hands trembled slightly as if her strength was leaving her. Yet still she stood, staring at the glowing sign above. Help Wanted. To her, those words carried meaning. She did not know much English, but she understood enough. She thought maybe here, someone would accept her. The night deepened. Wind rattled the sign. Rain turned the ground into a mirror. Her reflection looked fragile, almost breaking with every drop, and still she waited, as if her whole life depended on one person stopping. In another corner of town, people still argued. "Why hasn't anyone called the police?" One asked, "What if she's dangerous?" Another replied, but nobody wanted to go near her. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. They all waited for someone else to act. But the figure under the sign was not dangerous. She was desperate. Her world was far away. Destroyed and cruel, her journey had brought her here, and she only had one thought left in her heart. If humans needed help, maybe they would also help her. Midnight was approaching. The streets were almost empty now. The neon sign buzzed weakly, throwing red light across her hood. Her breathing was slow, almost too weak to keep her standing still. She did not leave. The suspense grew heavier. Who was she? Why had she come here? What did she hope to find under a human sign in a human street? No one knew, not yet, but her story was only beginning. And the moment someone dared to step closer, everything would change by the next morning. The whole town was talking about the strange woman under the Help Wanted sign. She had not moved through the night. Some people claimed they saw her still standing when the sun rose. Others swore they heard strange sounds from her. Like whispers carried by the wind, nobody knew the truth. But everyone had something to say. In the bakery, customers gathered. "She's still there?" a man asked as he bought bread. "Yes," the baker replied, shaking his head. "She didn't even sit down. She stood like a statue all night. It's not human." A woman nearby crossed herself. "Aliens," she muttered. "We knew they would come here one day." The rumors spread faster than the rain from yesterday. Some said she was dangerous, maybe a spy. Others said she was harmless but sick. Children passing by dared each other to get close. But none of them had the courage. They only threw stones from a distance. Her hood shook with every hit, but she never reacted. She only kept her eyes fixed on the glowing sign. At the local diner, the sheriff sat drinking coffee. His deputy leaned in, whispering, "Should we bring her in?" "People are scared." The sheriff rubbed his chin. "For what crime? Standing under a sign?" He sighed. "Let her be if she does anything wrong. Then we'll act." But even his voice held unease, because deep down he felt it too. This woman was not normal. By noon, more people gathered across the street. They didn't come close, but they stared. The cloak was soaked now from the new drizzle. Her figure looked thinner, weaker, but still she stood. People pointed, whispering, "Look at her eyes." When a breeze lifted her hood for a second, they caught a glimpse. Her skin was pale, almost silver, and her eyes glowed faintly like embers in the dark. One man cursed under his breath, "That's not right. That's not human at all." Fear grew. Fear always grows faster than truth. Soon stories were twisted. A farmer told his neighbors, "I heard she tried to steal food last night." The shopkeeper chased her off, but it was a lie. She had not moved from that spot. The alien woman, silent and still, could hear some of their words. Though she understood little English, she caught pieces. Alien. Danger. Monster. Each word made her heart sink lower. She pulled her cloak tighter, hiding her face. But she did not step away from the sign. She thought if she waited long enough, someone would give her a chance. Children were the cruelest. They ran circles around her, chanting songs about monsters. One bold boy even tried to tug her cloak. She looked down at him, and the glow of her eyes made him scream and run. His friends followed, their laughter echoing through the street. The woman stayed silent, her stomach hurt from hunger. Her body ached from standing, but she did not move. Inside the barber shop, old men discussed her. "I saw her hands," one said. "Long fingers, thin like bones, not human hands." Another shook his head. "She's lost, maybe hiding from something. Who stands in the rain for 2 days unless they have nowhere to go?" The barber himself snorted. "No human would wait under a sign like that. She's desperate, but not for a job, mark my words. She's waiting for something else." The whispers spread into fear into anger. By afternoon, some townsfolk suggested calling the government. "They'll take her away," one woman said firmly. "This is not safe for our children," another man added. "What if she's a scout? What if more of her kind are nearby, watching us?" That thought made people shiver. Nobody dared to check, but in their minds, a whole army was already hiding in the shadows. Still no one touched her. No one dared cross the invisible line around her. They only watched and judged from a distance. The woman herself swayed slightly, her body weak, her stomach empty, her throat dry, but her eyes never left the sign above her head. She believed in its meaning. Help wanted. Maybe humans wanted help as much as she did. The day dragged on, the streets stayed busy. People carried groceries. Workers moved tools, life went on, but always, at the edge of every eye, was the strange figure under the sign. She became part of the street, like the lamppost or the broken bench, yet heavier, more haunting. As night approached again, the gossip reached every home. Parents warned their children not to go near. Shopkeepers closed early. The whole town felt tense, as if one silent woman was enough to change the air they breathed. But in one small house at the edge of the street, a man sat by his window. Watching her, he did not laugh, he did not curse. He did not fear her glowing eyes. Instead, he felt something else, pity, and slowly a question formed in his mind. Why is she still there, waiting in the cold? While all of us hide in our homes, the answer would come soon, and when it did, the whole town's whispers would no longer matter. Because one human was about to step forward, and the story would change forever. The second night had fallen, and still the strange woman stood under the glowing sign. The town was quieter now. Only the sound of rain tapping on rooftops and the buzzing of the old neon lights filled the empty street. Most people had locked their doors, whispering prayers before bed. Nobody wanted to walk past that corner anymore. But one man had no choice. His name was Daniel. He worked late shifts at the factory on the edge of town. Every night he walked the same road home. Tonight was no different. His boots splashed through puddles, his jacket soaked from the storm. He was tired, his muscles sore. He just wanted to reach his small apartment and rest. Then he saw her. She stood exactly where she had been for 2 days now, motionless under the help wanted sign. The red glow from the letters made her look even more ghostly. Daniel slowed his steps. He had heard the stories, he knew the gossip. At the diner, at the factory, in the cafe, everybody talked about her. Some said she was dangerous. Others said she was a lost beggar. Nobody dared to go near. Daniel stopped across the street. He watched her for a long moment. The rain dripped from her hood. Her shoulders trembled slightly as if she were fighting to remain standing. He noticed her hands, they shook, thin fingers twitching like branches in the wind. His chest tightened. She wasn't some monster, she looked tired. Most people would keep walking. And that thought crossed Daniel's mind too. He could ignore her like everyone else had. He could pretend she wasn't there. It was safer. But as he turned his foot to leave, he heard something, soft, almost broken. It was a whisper. Work. Safe. Home. Daniel froze. The voice was not sharp or threatening. It was weak. Desperate. A plea from someone who had nothing left. He looked back. His heart raced. Had he imagined it? But then she moved. Her hood lifted slightly, and for the first time he saw her face. Her skin shimmered faintly in the neon glow, pale and almost silver. Her eyes glowed softly like dying embers, not bright, not blinding, just alive. And in those eyes he did not see danger. He saw hunger, fear, loneliness. She was not a monster, she was someone in pain. Daniel's breath caught. Every story he had heard crumbled in his mind. She wasn't waiting to attack anyone. She wasn't scouting for an alien army. She was waiting for a chance. Maybe the last chance she had. He stepped closer. His boots splashed through the water. She turned her head slowly to look at him. For a second, Daniel felt his courage falter. The glow in her eyes was strange, not human, but the sadness there was deeper than anything he had ever seen. "Do you help?" she whispered again. Her words were broken, her voice rough, as if her throat was dry from days without water. She pointed weakly at the glowing sign above her. Help wanted. Daniel's chest tightened again. She had been standing there all this time because she thought the sign meant someone would take her in. She wasn't begging for money. She was begging for belonging. Daniel swallowed hard, his mind filled with doubts. If he took her home, what would the town say? What would the government do if they found out? He had heard what happened to people who hid aliens. They were taken away, punished, sometimes never seen again. The risk was real. But then he saw her knees shake. Her cloak clung to her thin frame. She looked like she might collapse at any moment, and all the fear in his mind clashed with something stronger inside him. Pity, compassion, the simple human instinct to help someone who was about to fall. He took another step and another, until he was standing in front of her. The rain dripped from his hair. His voice was soft but firm. "Do you need food? Shelter?" She blinked slowly, struggling to understand, then she nodded. Food, shelter, safe. Her voice cracked on the last word. Daniel sighed deeply. He felt the weight of his decision pressing on his shoulders, but in that moment he knew what he had to do. "Come with me," he said quietly. For the first time since she had arrived, the woman moved. She lowered her head and stepped forward carefully, as if afraid he would change his mind. Her cloak dragged in the water. Her steps were weak, but she followed him, and as they walked together down the empty street, the glowing sign buzzed behind them, flickering until finally going dark. From a window across the street, someone watched. Their curtain moved slightly. Their eyes wide with disbelief, one human had stopped. One human had dared to do what no one else did, and tomorrow the whole town would know. But for now, in the rain and the silence, Daniel led the alien woman toward his home, and though he was afraid of what might come, a strange feeling grew inside him. He was no longer just a tired factory worker. He was part of something bigger, something he could not yet understand, and the alien woman, though weak and trembling, felt the same. For the first time since she arrived on Earth, she was not alone. Daniel's small apartment was quiet when they stepped inside. The rain still beat against the windows. Dripping down the glass, he shut the door quickly, afraid that someone from the street might have followed them. For a moment he simply stood there, staring at her. She looked so out of place in his tiny living room, the cloak still dripping water onto the floor. She stood silently, as if unsure what to do. Her glowing eyes scanned the walls, the furniture, the old lamp, everything so human, so ordinary. Her shoulders trembled slightly. She was not only tired, she was frightened. Daniel moved slowly to the kitchen. He poured a glass of water and brought it to her. "Here," he said softly, his voice almost shaking. She reached out with long, thin fingers. Her nails were pale, almost translucent. She gripped the glass carefully, as if afraid it would shatter, and then she drank. Every sip was slow but desperate. Her throat worked as if each drop gave her life back. When she finished, Daniel asked, "Who are you?" She tilted her head, struggling to understand his words. Then she touched her chest with one hand. "Lyra," she whispered. Her voice was weak but clear enough this time. Her name was Lyra. Daniel nodded. His heart pounded. "Where are you from, Lyra?" he asked. Again she struggled. Her English was broken, but she tried. She lifted her eyes to the window where the rain fell like stars. She raised one trembling finger and pointed upward to the sky. "Far, far world," she said, her eyes lowered. "World? Gone?" Daniel frowned. "Gone? What do you mean?" She shook her head, searching for words she did not know. She tugged at her cloak and slowly opened it. Beneath it, her body was thin, her skin pale silver with faint lines that glowed softly like veins of light. On her shoulder were scars, deep, old wounds that looked burned. She touched them, then spoke haltingly. "War, chains." "No free," the words hit Daniel hard. He understood just enough. She had escaped. Her world destroyed by war, her people enslaved. She had scars to prove it, and now she was here, standing in his apartment, after waiting under a human sign for 2 days, hoping someone would understand. "Why the sign?" Daniel asked carefully, pointing toward his front door. "Why help wanted?" Her glowing eyes met his. "Word." "I know," she whispered. She tapped her temple with one finger. "Learn. From book?" Daniel realized she must have found some human text, maybe a dictionary or a sign, and memorized one phrase she believed would save her. Help wanted. To her it meant safety, acceptance, hope. Daniel rubbed his forehead. The weight of it all pressed down on him. This wasn't just a lost traveler, this was a refugee, an alien woman carrying the story of an entire destroyed world, and she had come to humans, desperate enough to stand in the rain under a glowing sign until one of them showed mercy. "Do you have anyone?" he asked. His voice was softer now, almost a whisper. "Family? Friends?" Her face tightened. She shook her head slowly, her eyes watered, glowing brighter as tears formed. "No. Only me," she said in her broken English. Her hand gripped the cloak tightly. As if holding on to the last piece of her world, Daniel felt a heaviness in his chest. He looked at her, this fragile figure who had endured so much, and yet still stood, still searched for help. She was alone, utterly alone, and now somehow he was the only one she had. The silence in the room stretched long. Daniel knew what this meant. If the government found out, he would be in trouble. If the townspeople discovered her in his home, they would turn against him. But could he send her away? Could he push her back into the storm? Back under that sign, knowing she had no one else? Finally, he spoke. "You can stay." The words were simple, but they carried more weight than he realized. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She repeated them back, her voice trembling. "Stay. Here?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, here, at least until you're safe." For the first time, her lips curved slightly, not a full smile, but a faint shadow of one. It was fragile, uncertain, but real. She whispered softly, "Thank you." Her voice cracked, but those 2 words carried more emotion than Daniel had ever heard. That night, as she rested on his old couch, wrapped in a blanket he gave her, Daniel sat by the window staring at the rain. He thought about the town, the gossip, the fear. He thought about the scars on her body, the glow in her eyes, the broken words she struggled to speak. And he thought about the choice he had made. He was only one man, a factory worker with nothing special in his life, yet tonight, he had taken in an alien woman whose world was gone. Her story was bigger than his, but somehow now, their paths were tied together. As he watched her breathing slowly in sleep, Daniel realized something. The sign outside had said help wanted, but maybe it wasn't her who needed the humans. Maybe it was the humans who needed her. The next morning came quietly. Sunlight slipped through Daniel's thin curtains, painting golden lines across the small room. On the couch, Lyra still slept, her face calm at last after nights of fear and hunger. Daniel stood in the kitchen, staring at her while he drank his coffee. The more he looked, the more he realized what danger he had brought into his life. It wasn't Lyra who was the danger, it was the world outside. If the town discovered her in his apartment, they would turn on him. He could already hear the voices. "You're hiding an alien. You're putting us all at risk." The sheriff would come. Government agents would follow. He had seen news stories before. Aliens taken away in black vans. People arrested for helping them. Some never seen again. Daniel's hands shook slightly as he set the cup down. Was he ready for this risk? He barely had enough money for his own life. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment, worked long hours at the factory. He had nothing to offer, and yet he had said she could stay. A soft sound broke his thoughts. Lyra stirred on the couch. Her glowing eyes opened slowly. She sat up, clutching the blanket around her thin frame. She looked at Daniel with uncertainty, as if afraid he had changed his mind overnight. "You still here?" she whispered. Her broken English carried relief. Daniel nodded. "Yes, you're safe." But inside his chest was heavy, because he wasn't sure how long he could keep that promise. Lyra rose slowly, her cloak slipping off her shoulders. The faint glow of her skin in the morning light was clearer now. Daniel saw the scars again, burned lines across her arms and back. He couldn't help but ask, "Who did this to you?" She lowered her head, searching for words. "War," she said. "Masters. Jane's hurt." She pressed a hand against her chest. "Escape. Only me." Her voice trembled. Daniel's stomach twisted. She had not only escaped her world, she had escaped slavery before he could reply. A sudden knock at the door made him freeze. His blood went cold. Lyra stiffened instantly, pulling the blanket tighter around her. Her eyes wide, glowing brighter with fear. Daniel pressed a finger to his lips. Signaling her to stay quiet, he moved to the door slowly. His heart hammering, he opened it a crack. Mrs. Harper, the landlady, stood there with her hands on her hips. Her sharp eyes peered past him into the apartment. "Morning, Daniel," she said. "I heard strange sounds from your place last night. Are you hiding something?" Daniel forced a smile. "No, just working late again. Maybe I dropped something." His voice was calm, but inside he was shaking. Mrs. Harper narrowed her eyes. Well, keep it down, and remember, no visitors after dark. Building rules." She gave him one last suspicious look before turning away. Daniel closed the door, exhaling heavily. Lyra was still standing by the couch, her body trembling. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Danger." "For you." Daniel walked toward her, shaking his head. "Don't worry about me." But he knew she was right. She wasn't the only one at risk now. He was too. Later that day, he left for work. He told Lyra to stay hidden, not to open the door for anyone. She nodded, clutching the blanket around her like armor. As he walked to the factory, Daniel felt the weight of every pair of eyes on him. Did people already suspect? Did they see something in his face? At the diner, whispers followed him. A man leaned over to another. Daniel was walking near her last night. The other man frowned. "You think he spoke to her?" The rumors had started to spread, and Daniel could feel the town's suspicion turning toward him. Back at the apartment that evening, Daniel found Lyra sitting quietly by the window. Staring at the sky, she looked at him as he entered, her eyes full of worry. "You safe?" she asked. He nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, I'm fine." She lowered her gaze, then whispered, "Why, help me." "Risk." "You." Daniel paused. He didn't have an easy answer. He could have ignored her like everyone else. He could have walked past and gone home. He could have chosen safety. But when he looked at her now, fragile yet strong enough to survive everything she had endured, he knew why. "Because no one else would," he said softly. "And because you deserve better than standing in the rain alone." Her glowing eyes softened. She whispered again, "Thank you." Her voice cracked, but it carried truth. That night, as Daniel lay awake in bed, listening to her quiet breathing from the couch, he thought about the risk again. His life was simple before: work, home, repeat. Now it was tangled in danger and secrets. Yet for the first time in years, he felt like his choices mattered. The world outside saw Lyra as a threat, a monster. But Daniel had seen the truth. She was not dangerous. Only desperate, and maybe, just maybe, protecting her was worth every risk. The days passed slowly. Daniel tried to keep his life normal. He went to work, nodded at neighbors, drank coffee at the diner. But everything had changed inside his apartment. For every night when the town went to sleep, he returned home to a secret, an alien woman named Lyra. At first she spoke little. Her English was broken, her sentences short. Yet with each day she learned more. She watched the way Daniel spoke, repeated his words, and practiced quietly when she thought he wasn't listening. Her hunger to learn was clear, not just for language, but for trust. One evening, when the sky was red with sunset, Daniel found her standing by the window again. Staring upward, she always stared at the sky, as if waiting for something to appear. He sat down nearby and asked gently, "Lyra, tell me about your world." For a moment she stayed silent. Her glowing eyes reflected the fading sun. Then slowly she turned toward him, her thin fingers pressed against the scars on her arms. She took a deep breath as if pulling courage from inside, and began to speak. "My world. Named Taloris," she said carefully. Her accent twisted the word, but Daniel understood. Taloris was green. Rivers, mountains, bright skies. Her lips trembled slightly. Long ago, free people, happy. Daniel leaned forward, listening closely. Lyra's voice grew stronger as the memories spilled out. Then, war came, ships from stars, big, dark, full of fire. They came with chains. Her glowing eyes darkened with pain. They took, many made us slaves, they call us. Workers, but not work, only suffering. Her hands shook as she pulled the blanket tighter around her. They put marks, she whispered. She moved the cloth from her shoulder, showing the burned scars again. Daniel's stomach tightened at the sight. Marks of owners, we were numbers, not names. Daniel's chest burned with anger. He clenched his fists but forced his voice to stay calm. "How did you escape?" Her eyes watered, glowing brighter with tears. "My family, all gone," she said. "Mother, father, brother, taken. Never returned." Her voice cracked. She placed a hand over her heart. "I was last. They sent me on ship, to another world. But," she hesitated. "Ship broke, I ran, found escape pod, lost in stars, long travel then." "Earth?" Daniel exhaled slowly. He had imagined her story, but hearing it in her own broken words cut deeper. She wasn't just a stranger hiding in his home. She was the last of her kind, a survivor carrying the weight of a destroyed world. "Why here? Why the sign?" He asked again, gently this time. Her lips curved faintly, almost a sad smile. "Earth, safe, I think," she said softly. "I find book, human words, one word stay in my mind, help wanted, I think. Maybe humans want help too. Maybe they help me." She lowered her head. "So I wait all day, wait all night, but no one come. Only you." Her words pierced Daniel's heart. All the gossip, the fear, the whispers in the town, they hadn't seen her truth. They had seen only glowing eyes and a strange cloak. But he now saw what she really was, alone, scarred and holding onto a fragile thread of hope. Daniel placed a hand gently on the table near her, not touching but close enough to show he wasn't afraid. "You don't have to wait anymore," he said firmly. "You're not alone now." Lyra blinked, her tears finally fell. Glowing faintly as they slid down her silver skin, she whispered, "I am safe here?" Her voice trembled. Daniel nodded. "Yes. As long as I can help it, you're safe." He didn't know if it was true. He didn't know if the government or the townspeople would allow it. But in that moment, he meant every word. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since he met her. It was as if his words gave her something more powerful than food or water: hope. That night she shared more stories. Her people's songs, though broken, she hummed softly, strange melodies that filled the small apartment with echoes of a lost world. Daniel listened in silence. He imagined green rivers, bright skies, a place now gone forever, destroyed by war and greed. And yet, through Lyra's voice, her world still lived, at least in fragments. Daniel realized something then. He had thought he was helping her by taking her in, but perhaps she was helping him more. She was showing him courage, survival, and strength beyond anything he had known. As the night deepened, Daniel whispered to himself, "They'll come looking, they always do." He thought of the landlady's sharp eyes, of the sheriff's uneasy stares. He knew keeping her hidden wouldn't be easy, but when he looked at Lyra, humming her fragile song with tears glowing on her cheeks, he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't turn her away no matter the risk. The town was never truly silent. Even at night there were whispers, footsteps, and the sound of doors closing quickly. But inside Daniel's apartment, A different kind of silence lived, soft, careful and full of hidden fear. For days now he had kept Lyra safe. Yet with each passing hour the risk grew heavier. Rumors in the diner were sharper than ever. Someone's helping her, one man said. Nobody could stand that long without food, another added. I saw Daniel walking near her. He looked nervous. The sheriff said little, but his eyes were watchful. He was waiting for proof. Daniel felt the weight of their suspicion every time he stepped outside. Still, he came home each evening and found Lyra waiting quietly. Sometimes she practiced words in English. Sometimes she hummed her people's songs. Her presence filled the small apartment with both peace and danger. One night, as the moonlight touched her silver skin, Lyra spoke more clearly than before. Her English had grown stronger. Daniel, she said softly, why you risk so much for me? Daniel sat across from her, his hands folded. He thought about the question. Because you remind me of something we forget, he said. That kindness is not weakness, and fear is not strength. Everyone else saw a threat. I saw someone who needed help. Her glowing eyes softened, and for the first time since he met her, she truly smiled. It was small, uncertain, but it was real. The scars on her skin didn't vanish, the fear didn't disappear. But in that smile was something new, hope. But hope was fragile. The very next day, the danger came closer. Mrs. Harper, the landlady, knocked hard on the door. Daniel, she called. Open up, Sheriff wants a word. Daniel's chest tightened. He glanced at Lyra, who froze like a deer in headlights. Her eyes wide, her breath trembling. Stay hidden, Daniel whispered. He guided her into the small storage closet. She curled inside, clutching her cloak tightly. Daniel shut the door and forced his face calm before opening the front door. The sheriff stood there, his hat dripping rain. Morning, Daniel, he said slowly. His eyes scanned the room behind Daniel. We've been hearing talk. You've been close to that. Stranger, haven't you? Daniel shook his head. I walk home from work. Sheriff, that's all. I don't go near her. His voice was steady, though inside his heart pounded like thunder. The sheriff studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Be careful, Daniel. Some things aren't our problem to fix. Best leave them alone. With that, he turned and left, the sound of his boots fading on the wet street. When the door closed, Daniel leaned against it, his body weak with relief. He opened the closet and Lyra stepped out. Her hands still shaking, her voice broke. I bring trouble. Daniel shook his head. No, you bring truth, he said firmly, and the truth always brings trouble. That night, as they sat together, Daniel realized something. He could not keep her hidden forever. The town would not stop watching. The government would not stop hunting, but maybe there was another way. Maybe instead of hiding, they could stand together. He looked at her and said, Lyra, you came here because you believed in one word. Help. You thought humans would help you, maybe. It's time we show them who you really are. Her glowing eyes widened. Show them, she whispered. Fear and wonder mixing in her voice. Daniel nodded. If they see you not as a monster but as a person, maybe they'll understand, maybe not all but some. And sometimes one small change is enough to start something bigger. The idea scared her, but it also lit a spark in her eyes. For the first time, she imagined not just surviving, but living, not just hiding, but being seen. The next morning, Daniel walked with her to the edge of town, not under the shadows, not in secret, but side by side. People stared from their windows, whispers rising like a storm. Some gasped, some cursed, some simply froze. The sheriff himself stepped out of the diner, his hand near his holster. But he didn't move. Daniel raised his voice, stronger than ever before. She is not a threat, he shouted. She is not a monster, she is Lyra, and she is alive because she had hope that someone would care. The crowd grew tense, nobody spoke at first. But then from the back, an old woman stepped forward. The same one who had watched from her curtain days ago. She looked at Lyra's trembling hands, her thin frame. Her glowing eyes filled not with hate but fear. The old woman whispered, She looks tired, she looks like she needs food. One small voice broke the silence, and others followed. Not all were kind, not all believed. But something had changed. Lyra was no longer just a shadow under a sign. She was a living being with a name. That night back in Daniel's apartment, Lyra sat by the window again, but this time, her eyes were not filled with fear. They were filled with light. Daniel, she whispered, maybe. New beginning? Daniel smiled softly. Yes, Lyra, a new beginning. And though the future was uncertain, though danger still waited in the shadows. In that moment, they both felt something stronger than fear, stronger than risk, hope. The sign outside the old store still flickered weakly. Help wanted, but now it no longer marked desperation. It marked the start of something bigger. A human and an alien standing together against fear, proving that kindness could light even the darkest street. It was not just Lyra's new beginning, it was theirs, together.